Today, we are honored to have Khenpo Sodargye with us. He will talk to us about some of the ideas in Tibetan Buddhism. Since Khenpo is visiting Beijing this time and is able to come to Peking University, I feel that this is a truly special and auspicious opportunity. I was just thinking, in the academic world right now, the research and the investigate on Tibetan Buddhism is still not sufficient. Tibetan Buddhism contains many truly outstanding and profound teaching, and its teaching philosophy. Currently, the academic community doesn't understand this very well, and there are shortcomings in teaching. Another point about the Tibetan Buddhism is deeply connected with Tibetan culture itself, truly. In fact, we don't know much about the relationship between them as well. Thirdly, I think we have Khenpo here who is a highly accomplished master in terms of spiritual practice. He can discuss Buddhist thought, which is actually introducing Buddhism to us from another perspective. This might be completely different from how we university professors talk about Buddhism. At Peking University, we value multiculturalism, inclusiveness. Our students should possess a sense of tolerance as well as a passion for academic pursuits. So today, we are truly honored to have invited the Khenpo Peking University philosophy and to our Institute for the Study of Religious Culture to give a lecture. In fact, to a large extent, this event was initiated by some students who are passionate about the study of Tibetan Buddhism. It was mainly their initiative. I think we must truly cherish the enthusiasm of these students. This enthusiasm encourages us teachers. Most of us teachers mainly study Chinese Buddhism and Indian Buddhism. So student enthusiasm motivates us teachers to strengthen our studies. Today, both teachers and the students have gathered for Khenpo's lecture. Now, let's welcome him with a round of applause.
I am very pleased to be here today at the Department of Philosophy at Peking University, together with the teachers and students to explore some of the key principles and teachings of Tibetan Buddhism related to emptiness and Buddha nature. You could also say that I am here to share a few of my own humble insights with everyone. As for myself, I can also be considered someone who is engaged in education, though my role is actually a little bit different. I'm also, in fact, a teacher. I have now been teaching and transmitting the Dharma for nearly over 20 years. I believe that the professors, teachers, and students present here at Peking University, most of you are also engaged in this kind of educational work. You are people who take on the great, honorable, and sacred responsibility of teaching and nurturing others. So occasions like today, where we come together to discuss and learn collectively, are very necessary. This is actually also my first time here, Peking University. I sense the academic mood, especially within Peking University's Chan Studies Society and the Gengdu Society, where many students and teachers have conducted very profound research on religion. Nowadays, there are many opportunities for everyone to communicate with each other. In fact, communication between people is extremely important. I feel that as Tibetan monks who study and research Tibetan Buddhism, there is much for us to learn from Chinese Buddhism, as well as from the meaningful scientific and technological knowledge found in modern universities. At the same time, we also feel that students and teachers at modern universities should also turn their attention to the profound aspects of Tibetan Buddhism and the deep fields of other religions. By learning from and understanding each other like this, in fact, when it comes to our views on our life, values and worldviews, there's still a lot of things that we need to understand and learn about. So I think during today's discussion with everyone here, I would like to share some of my own understanding of Buddhism and would like to share it with all of you. At the same time, we can also engage with each other through questions together. Everyone, usually in their hearts, whatever uncertainties or things you don't understand, we can learn together. Through discussion and research like this, many of the doubts in our minds can be brought up and analyze them. Buddhists have this kind of habit. When we first start learning about Buddhism, we have a lot of doubts and want to ask many questions. But past the point, there are no more questions left. Eventually, we don't even feel like asking anymore. There is such a process. So I think among the scholars and talented individuals from the Department of Religious Studies and the Department of Philosophy at Peking University, some scholars and talents in the humanities should be very talented and wisdom. And I believe your wisdom is also very sharp. So when we all study together, it should be helpful and lead to progress for everyone. Therefore, I would first like to briefly talk about the importance of studying the concept of emptiness in our time. As we all know, all the humanity has now officially entered the 21st century. Looking at it from a historical perspective, our material civilization can be said to have developed to an unprecedented level. We could put it that way. From the end of the 20th century to the beginning of the 21st century, it should be said that this is, in human history, an era in which science, technology, and the economy have all developed at the fastest pace ever. However, when it comes to our inner world, our ethics and morality, we truly have to admit that there has indeed been some decline, downward trend. This is true for traditional culture in China, in the Han region. As you all know, if we look back in the human history, Confucianism in the Han region, that is, the teachings of Confucius and Mencius, the thought of Confucius and Mencius was highly valued in the Han region. Moreover, it played an incredible role in shaping human moral standards. But as everyone knows today, as we all know, during 1960s and 70s, traditional Chinese culture, especially during the Cultural Revolution, suffered historic destruction. After that, although there are now many insightful people who want to restore our excellent traditional culture nowadays, it is just like a critically ill patient who cannot recover immediately. Therefore, I think that for our students and teachers, on the one hand, it is extremely important to value our own traditional culture nowadays. As the professor just mentioned, we should now not only be well versed in theory, but also put it into practice in our actions. Certain virtues, the way we interact with others and handle matters, these behaviors must be regulated. Otherwise, I think that if university students lack some basic aspects of character, if they fail to meet standards in their conduct and interactions, then no matter how advanced your knowledge is, or how sharp your intellect may be, in reality, you will encounter difficulties when you enter the workforce or society. That is why so many people all around the world are especially drawn to Tibetan Buddhism. When I often communicating with many people, both domestically and internationally, about the Tibetan Buddhism and to talk about this topic, nowadays, Tibetan Buddhism exists in a very perfect and complete state. Tibetan Buddhism is based on the pure teachings, that originated 500 years ago during the Buddha's era. Although these teachings have gone through historical changes and endured many twists and turns, but in essence, they have remained completely intact and still exist today. As a result, whether it's Western intellectuals or Eastern scholars, the reason why everyone's attention or curiosity is turning toward Tibet, the biggest reason would be Buddhist thoughts. In other words, the most original teachings have been preserved up to now. So regarding Buddhist thought, we all know the Buddha spoke the Dharma 84,000. When the 84,000 Dharma wheels are summarized, they are grouped into the 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel. That is to say, the first turning is called the Dharma wheel of the 4 Noble Truths. And the second turning is the Dharma wheel of emptiness. The third turning of the Dharma wheel in ordinary language, it is the Dharma wheel about Tathagata or Buddha nature. If we were to discuss all the teachings on emptiness, it's the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Many Prajnaparamita teachings to cover, it will be impossible to explain everything in just a few words during such a short time today. But if we summarize it using simpler language to conclude the emptiness, I think the best treatise for studying Prajnaparamita, personally speaking, in my opinion, is that all of you should study Nagarjuna Bodhisattva's root verses on the middle way in the future. Because of root verses on the middle way, it employs an extremely profound and subtle method of dialectical reasoning to determine that all phenomena are empty. This ideology in our Tibetan Buddhism, there are different schools such as the Gelug and Nyingma traditions, but in fact, all of them need to study the root verses on the middle way. I look at the history of Han areas. Although historically there is no, especially extensively studying the Madhyamika method, in reality, throughout the generations, the great masters have all studied the root verses on the middle way, as well as the 12-gate treatises and some of the other treatises. Therefore, for all of you present here, when you want to study the teachings on emptiness, you must first use your own wisdom to investigate that all phenomena are empty. The emptiness of all phenomena is not just something to be said verbally. It should be said that Madhyamaka has many methods of reasoning. Among these, Madhyamaka has 5 common major lines of reasoning. Reasoning is usually called cause, the cause and effect. So when reasoning, we use the Vajra splinters argument. Vajra splinters argument is a method of analytical investigation. That is to say, all phenomena are neither self-arisen nor other arisen, nor are they arisen from both, nor do they arise without cause. How can they arise in any of these ways? If something were to arise from itself, then it would become endless and infinite. If it were to arise from something else, then things like light would also appear in darkness and so on. This method of reasoning is very meticulous. In Chandrakirti's entry into the middle way, it is explained in great detail. If the arising of all phenomena is absent, their existence is absent too. If their existence is not established, then their end also does not exist. Therefore, now everyone should, after understanding this Madhyamaka reasoning, determine causally that all things are empty. This is a method of reasoning in the middle way. There is also another method of reasoning in Madhyamaka called the neither one nor many reasoning. Neither one nor two are established per this reasoning. If two are not established, all phenomena more than two are also not established. If one person is not established, 10 people cannot be established. The concept of 10 is established based on 1. So why is 1 not established? Because what we call 1 is also just an illusion. For instance, when we say one person, that refers to a single self. This self is nothing more than a conceptual fabrication made by people's deluded discrimination. If you truly analyze it, we usually think that the self exists. But when we examine it, is the head the self, the hand, the foot? When you investigate each part, you cannot find any true nature of the self. Then you realize, oh, people are always just clinging to the aggregation of the five skandhas as the self. In reality, the true essence of the self does not exist. So through this method of observation, one can determine that the true nature of all phenomena is emptiness. The best method for discerning the emptiness of true nature is the adornment of the middle way. I previously translated Mitham Rinpoche's commentary on the adornment of the middle way. The reasoning in it is explained in great detail with clarity and precision, analyzing the cause of being and non-being, thereby breaking down the cause of being and non. The main focus is on analyzing from the effects perspective. The existent should not arise, nor should the non-existent arise. If something exists, it needn't arise as it already does. If something does not exist, it cannot arise show, could something non-existent arise. If such production were possible, then even the son of a barren woman could generate substantial things and so on. This is the way to analyze it. Actually, this is discussed quite extensively in the root verses on the middle way. Another observation is fourfold refutation of causation. Fourfold refutation of causation is in treatise on the two truths of the middle way as well. This analysis method, whether one cause can generate multiple effects, whether one cause can generate one effect, and whether multiple causes can produce multiple effects, whether multiple causes can produce one effect. We can observe in this way. There's also the cause of dependent origination, which is very important, the great cause of dependent origination. It also discussed in root verses on the middle way in the Ratnakuta Sutra, Sutrangama Sutra, and Avatasaka Sutra. These texts discuss the cause of dependent origination, this cause of dependent origination. We know that all phenomena are indeed determined to be empty in nature. However, when you analyze them, everything is emptiness and nothing at all can be obtained. Nothing can be found. We often think our bodies, our lives, our emotions, as well as the mountains, rivers, and earth outside, and all phenomena truly exist. But in reality, this is just an illusion arising from our deluded perceptions. If you truly observe them with wisdom, you will find that all things, everything in existence, all phenomena are ultimately unreachable. I think this kind of realization must be an extremely profound and deeply meaningful Dharma. This principle is also explained in Master Tsongkhapa's Praise to Dependent Origination. In this world, only one being, our Master Shakyamuni Buddha, taught such a Dharma of dependent origination and emptiness. Apart from him, although there are non-Buddhist schools and other religions, they have spoken about emptiness, but this kind of emptiness is merely a form of simple emptiness. Back when Shakyamuni Buddha was alive, there were also quite a few non-Buddhist traditions, and they too talked about emptiness. But their understanding of emptiness was not ultimate. So all the teachers and students present here regarding the understanding of emptiness, we must never mistake so-called emptiness as non-existence. Non-existence, which in the root verses on the middle way, is described as one extreme. If it is an extreme here, then whether it is the extreme of existence or non-existence, both are forms of clinging to true existence. If one clings to true existence, then liberation would not be attained, and suffering will arise. Just as it is stated in the 60 verses of reasoning, if one admits the existence of real entities, great greed and anger will arise. If you accept the existence of a truly existent thing, then strong attachment and aversion will inevitably arise. If you have attachment and aversion and cling to them, you will commit negative karma because of them. If you create negative karma, then you will inevitably continue to revolve in samsara. If you remain in samsara, you cannot attain liberation. Therefore, anyone who wishes for liberation must aspire to the Dharma of emptiness. This Dharma of emptiness is the gateway to the great empty, from the way of the Bodhisattva. Therefore, those who wish to end suffering should awaken the wisdom of emptiness. If you want to extinguish all suffering, both your own and others, then you must awaken this wisdom of emptiness and selflessness within yourself. So here we must truly understand the meaning and value of emptiness. Furthermore, when we talk about emptiness, you should not mistake it for mere or singular emptiness. If it were just a singular emptiness, that would be the lowest level in Buddhism, the Hinayana. Even in the Hinayana, they actually consider that mere emptiness is actually just a part of the selflessness of person. Why do we say this? As everyone knows, the Hinayana realizes the selflessness of persons, but he admitted that the last very subtle, they accept that this subtle fundamental particle exists. They believe that if this extremely subtle particle did not exist, then all phenomena, all things in the world of forms could not arise from nothing, and nothing could arise from complete emptiness. They worry that the origin of all phenomena must have an especially subtle basis, either by using the most subtle instant in the world or by using the most subtle type of particle among all particles. Indeed, they believe that such phenomena exist. I often read some modern physics, and in the knowledge of physics, there are indeed some views that are quite similar to those of the Hinayana. Everyone here is well aware that in physics and quantum mechanics, probably in the 19th century, during Newton's time, the smallest unit was basically considered to be the molecule at first in the field of science. Later, in the 20th century, molecules were further divided into atoms. Atoms were then divided into atomic nuclei, electrons, neutrons, and protons. Eventually, it is said that now they are divided into quarks, subquarks, and so on. As for the school of physics, it should also have two factions. One faction believes that matter can be divided endlessly. So they believe that even quarks should be further divided endlessly into what they call sub-quarks. There is indeed such a viewpoint that division can go on infinitely. There is also another perspective which holds that there must be a smallest indivisible unit of matter. Many physicists believe that this is called the vacuum, or the field currently is considered to be the field. Fields such as the electron field, quantum field, magnetic field, and so on. A field is actually a form of energy. The vacuum is a state where nothing exists at all, an utterly empty realm. This is what is called the vacuum. The vacuum and the field are considered to be the fundamental source of all phenomena. If this did not exist, then combining many tiny particles would be impossible. If they could not combine, then the origin of protons and neutrons would not exist. So now, quite a few physicists believe that there must be a smallest unit. If it did not exist, the entire world as we know it would become something truly and particularly terrifying. But from the perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, there is no need to be afraid. Understanding emptiness, independent origination, all phenomena for everyone, it really shouldn't be any difficulty. However, I think In the Hinayana tradition, there is a worry that if all phenomena are empty, then nothing would exist. They believe that everything should have a point of origin. This is actually quite similar to the view held by modern physics. The physicist Descartes once said, are we really dreaming right now, or are we not dreaming? After the observation, he ultimately couldn't figure it out. He said that all phenomena, in all their diversity and variety when observed, none of them actually hold up. But right before our eyes, everything undeniably exists without deception. This is nothing more than a devil deceiving us, making us unable to tell what is real and what is fake. He once said something like this. So if we understand some of the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, there's really no need to worry about which devil is playing tricks on us. There's absolutely no need. And why is that? Because the fundamental nature of all phenomena does not exist. Things can manifest within emptiness. If their essence truly existed, then in the realm of inherent existence, they could not appear. Of course, this principle is still very profound. So I think all of you especially need to study Madhyamaka and the concept of emptiness. This study is very important. If you do not gain a thorough understanding, I feel that many areas of knowledge in life, so at least for me personally, the value of other fields of knowledge compared to the study of Madhyamaka and emptiness is indeed vastly different. Therefore, in our daily lives, we should understand what kind of material the entire world is actually made of and what kind of dependent origination it is composed of. If you understand the principle, it will definitely be helpful to your studies eventually. The scientist Einstein once said about that our time, space, and even matter are all just sophisticated illusions created by humans. This statement is similar to what Buddhism says. All phenomena arise from discriminating thoughts. I remember that in the classic Buddhist teaching, the Entering the Middle Way, mentioned as, thus, all phenomena in their very nature are truly empty. They nevertheless still appear to arise from this emptiness. The idea of arising from emptiness is similar to what scientists now believe. That when all phenomena are ultimately analyzed, they will all reach a certain state of emptiness. On this point, I think that many wise minds in quantum physics, in the process of racking their brains to study these things, have not realized the concept of dependent origination and emptiness. If they were to study the root verses on the Middle Way or the Avatamsaka Sutra, then they would definitely understand the deepest, profound aspects of all phenomena. This is very important, which is why some scientists believe that if someone is not deeply shocked by the reasoning that all phenomena do not truly exist, it shows that they have not grasped the truth of quantum mechanics. There are such views. But in fact, for those of us here in the process of studying or researching the Middle Way, it is especially important to analyze all phenomena as being empty. When analyzing, we Buddhists are not afraid of being refuted by others, nor are we afraid that our own school cannot be established, which is about the ultimate genuine view. We don't worry such situation. Therefore, the Buddha also said in the relevant scriptures, whether you are a monk or anyone else, you should examine my teachings just as you would test go to investigation. Please do not rely on me merely with a reverent mind. If our attitude toward Buddhism, toward the teacher, or toward the Dharma is simply one of worship or respect, then it is just faith, not wisdom. But for our Buddhism teachings can withstand scrutiny of history, examination of wisdom. Whenever any scholar or wise person uses their intellect to investigate, I believe that whether it is Shakyamuni Buddha's Madhyamaka philosophy or mundane thinking, karmic cause and effect, and the ideas of samsara, the cycle of birth and death, as well as the Tathagatagarbha and luminosity, teaching these ideas, whenever any philosopher throughout history analyzes them, they fundamentally cannot be refuted even after 500 years have passed. In the history of humanity, there have been countless literary giants, but we should know what is their comments of Buddhism. This is something everyone should be aware of. For example, I look at the British philosopher Bertrand Russell. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1950. He is also an advocate for the valuable contributions that literature makes to society. He wrote a very famous book called Why I'm Not a Christian, very interesting. In this book, we will know that he refuted Christianity from a literary perspective. Later in the West, it also sparked a lot of discussion. But when he explained his reasoning, he said, I truly believe that in all of human history, Shakyamuni Buddha and Socrates should be placed above Christ. As for his reason, he said it was because of their wisdom and virtue, and neither Christ nor anyone else could surpass them. We are not saying that Christianity is bad. That's not what we mean. But from a fair standpoint, I truly believe the Buddha's wisdom and compassion are indeed, in some respects, areas where other religions may still warrant further observation. Why do I say this? For example, Christianity also advocates compassion to all the human beings, and Islam, according to the teachings of the Quran, also acknowledges that the existence of Allah and the fact that all things are created by Allah is also acknowledged in this way. However, this is within a certain scope. Some other religions, when it comes to all beings aside from humans, they permit killing and destruction and may not treat them with compassion at all to some of the people. This even includes non-believers, those who are not part of their own religion. If such people oppose their religion, they also believe it is acceptable to completely destroy or eliminate them. But when it comes to the compassion in Buddhism, everyone should be clear about that. Even those who are your hateful enemies, even those who would behead you, should be regarded with boundless great compassion and cared for with kindness. This kind of thinking, many intellectuals, as the name suggests, should be able to figure this out. Among all the ideologies in the human history, that is, it is one that abandons self-interest, that lets go of the self and wholeheartedly, without any conditions, helps all of humanity and even all living beings. So what exactly are the teachings of such a religion? This is something that everyone can simply imagine and should be able to understand through observation. And then, speaking from the perspective of wisdom, so for me, I have also read some books from other religions in the world, but the wisdom of the Buddha, as found in the Buddhist canon today, in our Tibetan canon, there are 108 volumes, all of which are the words spoken by the Buddha. Now, the 108 volumes published by the Collation Bureau, including Indian works by Nagarjuna Bodhisattva and Acharya Chandrakirti, and the treatises by those great monks and masters we refer to as commentaries. Over 100 collections of these commentaries exist, more than 200 volumes in all, and all of them describe the true nature of all phenomena, which truly is the truth. Therefore, we do not merely or simply worship Shakyamuni Buddha out of our own faith alone. If people worship solely out of faith, it is not wisdom, because within faith there are both superstition and genuine belief. And sometimes the object of faith may indeed be someone without any real virtue. At times it can be superstition, and people may become infatuated with it. So having faith, in my view, is not necessarily correct. However, when we examine things with wisdom, in the end, we cannot find any faults in the other party. And in fact, he has truly articulated all the most essential knowledge of humanity, explaining everything with complete clarity. So why should we not show respect to such a Buddha? Therefore, we must all understand this most essential perspective of the Buddha's thought. In the process of discerning all phenomena, everything is ultimately empty in nature. So now we don't realize emptiness. Every day we are busy and rushing around just for fame and fortune. Whether we have possessions or do not have them, it is all troublesome and worrisome, toiling endlessly and tirelessly. When, truly, will there ever be any real leisure or peace of mind? Life twists and turns, meandering and flowing like winding, unpredictable rivers, while worldly affairs, with all their complexity, pile up endlessly like layers upon layers of overlapping mountains. I don't remember clearly. In the past, Chan Master Zigong composed a song specifically to encourage people to recite the Buddha's name. The lyrics are quite good. The meaning is that every day we are always sometimes saying there is, sometimes saying there isn't. It's all very troublesome. Busy every day. When do we ever have a few hours of leisure or any time to have a rest? Every day we are caught up and attached to worldly matters all the time. In fact, life is like a winding little river or like a series of overlapping mountains. Trivial matters of the world are like this, never-ending every day. So sometimes when we see people unfamiliar with the Dharma of emptiness, whether they are monastics or lay people, they seem quite pitiable, all for these fleeting decades ahead. Life is extremely short and years go by in a flash. But during those 10 years, everyone thinks that the work they do, the things they accomplish, are extremely meaningful, and they become especially attached to them. But what does such attachment ultimately bring? Apart from creating karma, it doesn't necessarily result in anything truly meaningful or valuable. So we sincerely hope that everyone here will come to understand the Madhyamaka teachings, the Dharma of emptiness, in the future. However, at this moment, if you do not understand the Dharma of emptiness in a systematic way, there is also a risk of misunderstanding and indeed a real danger of being misled. Currently, some people who study Chan Buddhism or Middle Way, when they analyze, they see all phenomena are empty. Good deeds bring good results, bad deeds bring bad results. And even all virtuous actions should be completely denied. They think everything is empty. But this approach is also incorrect. Although everything is empty, before you have actually reached that level in your conduct, you still need to accept cause and effect. And you should believe in and practice virtuous action. In the past, in Tibetan Buddhism, there was also a Chan monk named Mahayana. This Chan monk came to Tibet at that time and spread the teachings of Chan. Spreading Chan teachings is right, and Chan Buddhism is supreme. Looking at it historically, our continued Song and Tang Eminent Monk's biography, and other about the Chan Buddhist cases, if you look at them. Historically, these great Chan masters and Chan lay practitioners, including some lay people, all attained enlightenment after practice. Everything became clear and accessible in the present moment. There were many such people. However, when Mahayana was spreading Chan teachings in Tibet at that time, he was unsuccessful. What was the reason for this failure? When he first arrived, he told many Tibetan Buddhists not to practice anything. Everything is empty. There is nothing, just don't cling to anything in the present moment. At that time, even the lamps offered in the monasteries, everyone knows that in Tibet, if you've been to the Potala Palace or other places, the act of offering lamps to the Buddha in Tibet is truly extraordinary. But even the lamps in front of the Buddha statues had disappeared at that time. However, later on, because there had been a prophecy from Bodhisattva Vajrasattva, they invited the great master Kamalashila from India to debate with the Heshang Mohan. After the debate, a sequential system of Dharma practice was re-established in Tibet. This sequential approach is very important. Now, after hearing this teaching from the highest perspective of Chan Buddhism or Vajrayana, it is true, all phenomena are empty and nothing to attach to. But before we reach that level, we should still engage in life release, do charitable deeds, recite the Buddha's name, read scriptures, and do our daily practices. None of these should ever be interrupted. If you stop doing them, the door to accumulating merit will be blocked because of this. If that happens, liberation becomes impossible. So this is the most important thing for your practices. Therefore, I sincerely hope that everyone here, both in your actions and in your altruistic intentions, you must always be guided by bodhicitta when performing these virtuous deeds. This is one aspect of the requirements for you to consider. Although everything is empty in nature, within that emptiness, you need to understand that before reaching the highest state, you must not stop practicing virtuous action. That is one point. Another point is what was mentioned earlier about Buddha nature. In fact, what we call Buddha nature is indeed something that we need to truly understand in our life. The Buddha nature, it is a very profound Dharma teaching. Why do I really say that? If we say that all phenomena are entirely empty in nature, as we understand that, then where do our thoughts, intentions, discriminating mind and virtues come from? They couldn't possibly arise from nowhere. All the magnificent qualities and virtues of the Buddha must have existed during the causal stage. So if our thoughts and intentions are completely empty, they would have no source either. We know that all phenomena are empty. In this process, there is a part of the luminosity and clarity. This luminous and clear aspect is called the luminous aspect of the Tathagata Garbha, so-called Buddha nature. Of course, the treatise that discusses it the most is the Uttara Tantra Shastra. Among the Buddha sutras, it is the Tathagata Garbha Sutra. In the third turning of the Dharma wheel, the Tathagata Garbha is explained in more detail. Moreover, in Vajrayana, texts like the Luminous Essence and the Hevajra Tantra, it is discussed. These treatises also provide very detailed explanations of the Tathagata Garbha. Some Buddhist sutras state that all sentient beings possess the nature of the Tathagata. Now, this Tathagata Garbha is somewhat different from what is acknowledged by non-Buddhist traditions. What non-Buddhist traditions acknowledge is something that true. In the commentary on Entering the Middle Way, it specifically cited the scriptural evidence from texts such as the Lankavatara Sutra to explain the perspective on Buddha nature. It clarifies how this differs from non-Buddhist views and from what is accepted in the Hinayana school. What is referred to as the Tathagata Garbha is simply the true nature of all phenomena. In Chan Buddhism, this is the Dharma realm mentioned when one realizes the mind and sees one's true nature. This Dharma realm should be said to be inseparable and indistinguishable from the teachings on emptiness. However, in the exoteric schools, such principles are examined through reasoning and analysis. In Vajrayana, there are the generation stage and the completion stage practices. Through practices involving the channels, winds, and drops, as well as deity visualization, one proceeds along such path. This allows Tathagata Garbha's nature to be revealed, or in the most supreme teachings of Vajrayana, such as Dzogchen, the clear light of Dzogchen is realized. Alternatively, one may recognize the nature of mind through a simple pith instruction from the Guru. At that time, the true nature of the Tathagata Garbha can be recognized. Additionally, Chan Buddhism also has various teachings for realizing the luminosity of the mind's nature. Therefore, here, if we speak from the perspective of pith instructions, regardless of whether it is all phenomena or your own mind, their essence is emptiness. This is the doctrine specifically taught in what is often referred to as the second turning of the Dharma wheel. In the meanwhile, the essence is empty. In fact, its luminosity is unceasing. Its clarity and awareness are indestructible. This indestructibility is essence of phenomena. It is not emptiness, nor is it simply luminosity. Of course, when we try to express this in words, it becomes impossible. If we use a small instrument, if you want to measure the entire universe with it, it's just not possible. That's why the Buddhist scriptures say that once you realize the inconceivable state, at that moment, you will suddenly achieve enlightenment. This is the transcendent state. Right now, with our discriminating thoughts and language, with our words and actions, to truly express the Tathagata Garbha, or the true face of great emptiness, is extremely difficult. It's like a bird trying to measure the expanse of space with its wingspan. But while we are still ordinary beings, is there a chance for us to recognize or understand it? There is. Mipaham Rinpoche Tsongkhapa, many eminent monks and great masters have also unanimously spoken about the teachings related to emptiness and luminosity. So although we cannot, like the realized beings, completely realize the true nature of all phenomena by relying on the teachings of our gurus and some great masters, we can come to recognize the nature of our own mind. It is important. Therefore, I think that for everyone present, if you want to understand the aspect of the luminosity treasury, you must study and research the 5 treatises of Maitreya, such as the discrimination of the middle and the extremes, discrimination of Dharma and Dharmata, and the treatise on the ultimate continuum, as well as Nagarjuna Bodhisattva's In Praise of Dharma Dhatu, and so on. These must be studied. After studying them, you will understand the view of Tathagatagarbha in the exoteric schools. Then further, we need to study the luminous essence. Within the luminous essence, luminosity is also discussed. Of course, the most supreme teachings are those mentioned in Great Perfection and Great Seal. Of course, from our perspective as Peking University students, you are starting out and have not yet entered society. Therefore, you need to directly reach some state of great perfection. It may be difficult, but you have to know, in fact, we believe that the most profound knowledge is emptiness and luminosity, which are also sometimes referred to as the ultimate teachings of the second and third turnings of the Dharma wheel. If we speak from the perspective of pith instructions, the third turning of the Dharma wheel is mainly explained through some of Maitreya Bodhisattva's teachings. The second turning of the Dharma wheel is expounded by Nagarjuna and Manjushri, including the teachings of Chandrakirti and Aryadeva, which serve as guidance. Therefore, in nowadays, as intellectuals, speaking from the standpoint of genuine Buddhist doctrine, there is a vast amount that one must comprehend. But the key is whether you will apply this to your own life. Today, many of you teachers and students who are present here now, perhaps some of you are studying and interested in Tibetan Buddhism, and some of you are studying Chinese Han Buddhism. When it comes to studying Tibetan Buddhism, actually within Tibetan Buddhism, there are especially numerous discussions on Madhyamaka and Tathagatagarbha. I have also translated some of these works. All of you present here should have many opportunities in the future with the right circumstances and opportunities for everyone to explore these topics together. In the process of exploring together, you will also come to understand the exceptional nature of prajna emptiness. If you truly realize prajna emptiness, then there will be no problem attaining liberation. Any other virtuous deeds, although they are conditions for liberation, if you want to escape samsara in 3 realms and reach the highest level as described in Buddhism, before you realize emptiness, you cannot attain any fruition. This is something everyone must clearly understand. Otherwise, we might think that studying any Dharma is a cause for Buddhahood, indirect cause of Buddhahood. If you want to achieve Bodhisattva fruition or become an Arhat or to realize your true nature, you must realize emptiness. Only after realizing emptiness can you truly attain liberation. Therefore, whether we are university students, teachers, or entrepreneurs in any sector, everyone is kind of lost in a state of grasping at inherent existence. We are all entangled in this web of samsara very deep. That's why we sometimes feel that in today's society, especially needs the Buddhist view of emptiness. If you attain some realization of emptiness, then many trivial matters in the world may seem less important to you, and you won't necessarily blindly pursue things the way people do nowadays, recklessly destroying the law of cause and effect and endlessly chasing after their own future every single day without any restraint all the time. Sometimes when I look at people in big cities compared to us who practice on the mountain, our states of mind and our goals are completely different. Nowadays, many people in cities spend their entire short lives for the sake of houses, money, relationships, and family. Their whole short life is consumed by these things without rest. If we humans live just pursued the sake of living, I think we are no different from other animals. So nowadays, many people place their values solely on money. This is known as materialism, also referred to as vulgarism. There's also actually something called hedonism. In fact, people today all possess some of these views or mindsets. Very few people truly and wholeheartedly pursue the truth, not to mention the next life. Even in this life, those who seek the truth are rare. So what is the truth in this life? We should be content with less and have fewer desires. Show respect to our parents and also seek wisdom and cultivate our own virtues. I believe that in this world, there are still many things that are truly valuable in life. For example, I visited universities before. Nowadays, some universities, they don't pursue knowledge or virtue at all. They only chase after meaningless things like surfing the internet and doing many other things which are of no significance either in this life or the next. It's completely that after entering university, they just relax and let go. I think this is just really unreasonable. Therefore, as a human being, especially as a university student in particular, we need to think about all hopes for the future of mankind and society are placed entirely on your shoulders. I have seen in some foreign countries when they are educating children, right from the start they say, the hope of humanity's future rests on your shoulders. If these children's behavior is in accordance with the right principles, then there is hope for humanity's future. So when I look at Peking University and other top schools, I actually didn't know much about them before. What are your virtues like? What is your conduct like? The hope for the future rests on your shoulders. So with this responsibility on you, have you helped sentient beings? Let's put that aside for now. In Buddhism, there are some profound views like emptiness and Buddha nature. These are extremely deep. And even those who have studied them for many years sometimes still cannot attain many levels of realization. But for ordinary people, what we need for survival is whether we possess the virtue of helping sentient beings and benefiting others. This is extremely crucial point. I remember that I once read quite some time ago in Einstein's fascinating and thought-provoking book. He mentioned that a simple and unpretentious life, whether on a physical or spiritual level, promotes genuine happiness, is the most meaningful for people, a life that is simple and unpretentious. Whether it is for both your mind or your body, generally speaking, it is most advantageous for the human race. He said that as human beings, we should live to dedicate one's life to others and to live and find meaning in being there for those around us. These scientists, at the very beginning, all had the idea of helping others. They reminded themselves hundreds of times every day that they were not living for themselves. This is where the value and meaning of our existence lie. It is to provide help and support to all people in the world. This is our target. But nowadays, many college students, as well as some schools and society, including some civil servants, teachers, and doctors as well, their goals are all about their own interests and desires. This is also related to our education to some extent. Since we were young, we are working hard for money, for social standing, for fame, for wealth. Teachers share the same values and students do the same. So what is the result in the end? Everyone in society ends up becoming selfish and self-serving. At that time, although people often call it a harmonious society in words, in reality, it is indeed very difficult. Therefore, we should change this kind of atmosphere now. What atmosphere should it be? When we are studying, every little bit should be done with an altruistic mindset in our hearts. With an altruistic mindset, this is the bodhicitta of the Mahayana. In fact, we have studied Mahayana Buddhism for a long time, but ultimately, I think the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, when summarized, come down to just two words: benefiting others. Apart from benefiting others, there's no deeper teaching in Mahayana Buddhism. So whether in Tibetan regions or Han regions, those who follow Buddhism all belong to Mahayana Buddhism. However, most Mahayana Buddhists basically cannot keep up with the teachings of Buddhism. Therefore, we also sincerely hope that whether it is the meaning of emptiness or the meaning of Tathagata Garbha, essentially it is a very profound branch of knowledge, exceedingly profound. Without specialized study and dedicated research on this knowledge, just relying on verbal discussion or reading one or two books is indeed very difficult. But those who have the karmic connection and faith can also study and explore these topics. This should certainly be considered possible. But ultimately, we should think, what is most fundamental for us? In the end, if Buddhists want to learn, they also need to have altruism. Even if one is not a Buddhist, any teacher or student at any university in the world, I believe, should also have altruism in their heart. Whether it's when you graduate and leave the school, or when the teacher takes under his guidance batch after batch of so many advanced students, if you always maintain a heart of altruism, I believe that everything you do will be meaningful. Everyone should revolve around the cause of benefiting others. This is very important, and is one thing I wanted to mention today. The second thing I want to bring up, I'd also like to share this with you all. Nowadays, when it comes to people's outlook on life, as everyone surely knows and would probably agree, an outlook on life is actually a view regarding a person's values and goals, as well as one's perspective on the joys and sufferings of existence. This is what we call an outlook on life. The core meaning of an outlook on life is fundamentally concerned with addressing and exploring the profound and universal issues that all human beings face, and in other words, to solve problems regarding suffering and joy and life and death. There are so many people in the world today, and of course everyone has a different outlook on life with different interests, pursuits, and goals of their own. Speaking as a Buddhist towards this topic, I believe that the most meaningful and valuable outlook on life today should be, first, to genuinely believe in cause and effect, and second, to understand the samsara cycle of birth and death. An outlook on life should ideally always include these two important points, because in fact, an outlook on life is a part of one's worldview. If you understand these 2 points, our lives and our work, and many of our goals will undergo fundamental changes over time. If you do not believe that good deeds are rewarded and bad deeds are punished, also do not believe in the existence of the 3 lifetimes: past life, present life, and future life. So for such a society, such a country, such a group of people, I truly feel that their actions are completely and utterly blind and have significant blind spots. Therefore, we must start now and make new adjustments to our outlook on life for our daily life. Why do I say this? Because, as I just mentioned, for more than 500 years, this has always consistently been the Buddhist perspective. Good deeds are rewarded, bad deeds punished, and past and future lives exist. Now, some people think that although this may be the Buddhist outlook on life, not all of humanity necessarily shares this view. Some might think this way. But on this point, we need to make it clear to everyone that nowadays the reasoning behind the existence of past and future lives is extremely important for our current society, and it is something people must understand. Some people now do not believe in it. But if you don't believe, you still cannot prove that it doesn't exist, because your disbelief is merely a kind of belief of your own. If you don't believe and you are certain that past and future lives do not exist, then you need to have solid and conclusive evidence to refute this view. Only then can your viewpoint, your claim, be established. But are there really so many people, both at home and abroad, who not only do not acknowledge it, but also have sufficient reasons to refute the existence of past and future lives? Are there any? Up to now, I have read many books from ancient and modern times, both Chinese and foreign. And I have also spoken with many scholars, with some PhD students, university professors, and even some scientists as well. For so many years, I have been exploring this question. We human beings certainly exist in past and future lifetimes. This is the most crucial point for you all. Many intellectuals I have encountered do not believe in it. But not believing does not mean it does not exist. It just means they do not believe. So if they do not believe, do they have any particularly reliable basis to refute its existence? We can see that they do not have. On the other hand, there are a great many theories supporting the existence of past and future lives. Even Newton mentioned this statement. He said that after a person dies, they do not simply cease to exist at that moment. Rather, after death, a person's consciousness definitely continues to exist. Of course, I think Newton might also have been influenced by Christianity of his time. But Christianity also acknowledges that there is existence after death, because Newton himself said that 80% of his writings were related to theology. Less than 10% were about science, actually. Some sources have mentioned this about him in various contexts. Even such scientists acknowledge that humans have future existences, and there are many others among us as well. Previously, Khenpo Sodargye wrote The Truth of Life. I successfully translated this work into Chinese version. After watching this, many wise men believed that there was no past or future life. Later truly could not find any other basis to refute it. Because this book truly provides the reader with some very compelling cases and doctrinal arguments, all presented in a detailed manner, it is indeed possible for people to recall what they did in their past lives. There are also many people who can remember their previous life. As a result, I think many people have changed their views towards the existence of past lives. Therefore, as teachers and students in higher education, the first thing you must do is establish your outlook on life. If you cannot establish this, then I believe that even if you learn some worldly knowledge, of course, it is still good for you to study it. But for you personally, if past and future lives truly exist, if in such a rare human life you do not accumulate merit or do good deeds, and you recklessly destroy all these causes and effects, then that is truly something to be afraid of. If in this life you go all out to commit negative actions, then the negative consequences are just like taking poison. The effects of the poison will definitely manifest. It's just like that. The afterlife is indeed very painful and challenging for you personally. So for us as human beings, having a correct outlook on life is indeed very important. If you establish a genuine outlook on life, then on that foundation, whether you pursue a career or do anything else, you will also succeed, and it will be meaningful. So for today's discussion, I actually didn't make any special preparations, actually. But what I often think about is that, especially when we study and explore Buddhism, an understanding of the middle way is very important. And at the same time, understanding Tathagata Garbha is also very important. Learning such knowledge also relies on long-term listening and contemplation. In our actions, we should, whenever possible, benefit others and strive to do so. Regarding benefiting others, I taught the way of the Bodhisattva before. I also recommend that everyone take some time to read this book if you can. This book is indeed helpful to everyone to a certain extent and remarkably beneficial for everyone in your life. We should take the time to thoroughly and carefully re-examine our outlook on life thoughtfully. Each of us should reflect on how we have been living in this world up to now. If our lives really do involve past and future lives, then what should we do? This is a question that we really must explore and pay attention to. So I think that's basically all the main points and important details I really wanted to cover and discuss with you today. I am sincerely and deeply grateful to the professors from the philosophy department for kindly giving us this wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much.